happy to have Tim Corey here. Tim, thanks for coming on.
No problem.
Thanks for coming out to Philly Code Camp. Where are you from?
Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Scranton, so not too far.
2 hours.
Yeah. So Scranton, I can't not plug Tech Bash when I hear the word Scranton.
I'll be there.
And you will be there at Tech Bash. We're really happy to have you coming out and doing a couple sessions for us at Tech Bash, which is in the Pocono area, not far from Scranton. How far do you think, have you been to?
About an hour.
Have you been to the Kalahari yet?
I have.
You have?
Yep.
So
with kids.
Place is pretty crazy. Forget Dev Conference. Forget going in for a conference.
No, please don't. But
but take your kids or take yourself to the Kalahari. Absolutely. Good time. 200,000 square foot indoor water park. Not to be missed. But we're here at Philly Code Camp today on another Saturday that we've had many of. Is this your first time at?
I believe so. I believe it's my first code camp.
Hard to keep track, right?
It is, yeah.
So Tim just did a talk on moving desktop apps to .NET Core 3.
Yep.
And coming up, you've got using Azure DevOps to manage your entire development process.
Yes.
So you're doing different types of talks, which is cool.
Sure, they're related.
Right. And so you have, talk about your presence on the web and the things that you're up to.
I have a YouTube channel. That's pretty much my main presence. So IAmTimCorey. So YouTube/IAmTimCorey, you'll find me.
Okay.
About 180 C# videos, primarily.
It's a lot of videos.
It's a lot of videos.
Short format, long format?
Long format.
Long format.
So my big thing is I don't like tutorials that tell you, okay, here's a building block, now woohoo.
Okay.
I like the idea of how would I actually use this in the real world? So when would I use it? Why would I use it? When would I not use it? What are the best practices around it? What pitfalls do I need to avoid? Mm-hmm. And so, yes, I'm long-winded. You'll find videos on, like an hour long possibly, because I really don't like the idea of people struggling through how to learn C#. That's what I did. So when I was learning C#, it was a couple of years ago, maybe .NET Core 1 or .NET Framework 1, but there was no tutorials out there that were great. The books were okay, and so I basically learned through trial and error. And that's hard. There's a lot of, the dark alleys of that's not the way to go. And the worst ones are the ones where you find out like 5 years later, someone goes, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, okay.
Isn't that great?
I'm an idiot. How do I do it? And so it leans into the idea of, I feel inadequate. I feel less than because I don't know everything about .NET Framework or .NET Core.
And we can't really. It's okay to not know everything. Right?
Absolutely.
Shouldn't put too much pressure, right? Like the fact is we're all, I can only speak for myself. I'm still learning every day.
You can speak for me too.
You speak for you too, right? So that's what's great is that, sure, we can make that mistake and it's great to learn a couple years later and correct that. But guess what's going to happen a couple more years later? We're going to correct something else we're doing. Right. And that's okay. We're all, I think we're all still growing. And to me, that's kind of what makes it interesting a little bit, right?
Right. Well, and that's why I created my videos, because I want to take away some of that fear and some of that struggle, especially for newer developers who don't realize that we all struggle.
Right.
I have people come to me and say, oh, well, you must be very confident. I'm like, not really.
Yeah.
If you ask me questions, I'm going to say, I
don't know. Right.
In fact, today in my session, I had a question. I'm like, I don't know. Because I'm not really versed in that area, and that's okay. Right. I'm okay with that.
But you're sharing what you do know.
I do.
And I can't help but wonder if there's some times where you learn something one day and go, that's it, I'm putting that on the show. In a couple of days, I'll go record something and like, wow, that was great. I'm going to share that.
So what started my whole process was actually codeproject.com. So codeproject.com is a great place for tutorials, written tutorials. And I was looking for something for Log4Net, and I just couldn't find what I wanted to. And Log4Net has documentation, but the documentation is all about what to do, not when to do it, not why to do it, not where to do it. It's all very, very technical.
Yeah.
And so I spent a week of my break over Christmas, where I printed out every document I could find on Log4Net. I had it at the kitchen table, and I said there has to be a simpler way to simplify this.
Yeah, right.
And so I boiled it all down to one article, and I'm like, this is it. And it wasn't an article. It was just for me. It was just my documentation to say, okay, here's how I do this. Because Log4Net, you set it up once, and then it just works, which is great until your next application, where you've forgotten, how do I set it up?
Because you only do it once every, let's say, maybe 6 months, once a year.
Correct.
How often do we really, some of us are fortunate that we build a lot of file new application kind of thing, right? But it doesn't happen like that,
No,
right?
and I forget. I'm horrible at forgetting.
Me
so
too.
I wrote this all down. I said, maybe somebody else might benefit from this. And so I put it on Code Project because I said, hey, let's try it out.
Code Project.
And it killed it. I mean, people were like, yes, this is what I want.
Okay.
And that was like the start of, oh, I'm not alone in thinking that I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times what I do is if I don't know something, I learn it, I teach it, and that's more for me to remember. But I figure if I have to remember, somebody else does too. And
Yeah.
that's what I do.
Yeah, that's great. And so, what would be the format of your show? I'm kind of curious. We do the Dev Talk Show here out of Microsoft on Wednesday nights, and we have a lot of conversation. We do demos and stuff like that. Is yours sort of focused? Do you have guests, or is it you?
I don't.
You do? You do?
I do not.
You do not have guests.
Nope.
That's what I thought. So, do you? Are these scripted, unscripted? A little both.
So I don't script because I feel like what happens is I don't get everything I need to into the talk if I do. What happens is I'll start down and I say, oh, that's important to talk about. Let's talk about this. And the other thing is that I have bugs. And I used to edit those out. So it used to be that very clean format of that we're all used to.
Right.
The demo just works.
Yeah, the demo just works, right?
And here's the real world situation.
Right.
It doesn't work. You put it in, it breaks. And so there's a lot of videos on my channel where I have tried out beforehand. I've gotten it to work before, but now I go to do it on camera and something happens.
Something always happens.
And instead
right?
of hiding that under the covers and pretending that I'm this awesome developer who never makes mistakes, we say, okay, let's fix it.
I think
and you learn debugging.
I think people really relate to that format. I think we've started to sort of pull the curtain back a little bit and see what happens. A lot of people are used to preparing or attending sessions. I've done many of them at user groups, code camps, and conferences and things like that, where I go to great lengths to make sure it's perfect.
Sure.
And even at that, it doesn't always come out perfect in the demo. It's tricky. And I think for a long time, people were used to expecting that perfection at the session. But I think people are really kind of learning that it's kind of more interesting when things happen.
When it breaks,
that's where you learn from your experiences and stuff.
Well, it does take down that idea that if I'm not perfect, I must be something must be wrong with me.
Yeah.
We're trying to get off the pedestal. Because if I'm in front of the room, it doesn't mean I'm the expert, that I know everything and I'm just somehow awesome. It means I know a little bit more than maybe you do, and I'm trying to help you get to where I'm at. And so the idea that we're all the same and it's okay, we make mistakes, we're not, we don't always know everything. So the idea I make mistakes is helpful, but then I try to teach debugging.
Okay.
You know how hard it is to teach debugging? Because if I intentionally create a bug, I'm going to find it. I know where it is.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to say, let's go down this wrong path and debug something. I know it's over here, but I'm over.
Right.
It's hard.
So teaching debugging versus teaching how to use the debugger. Teaching
correct.
how to use the debugger. Everyone watch. I'm going to put a breakpoint here.
Sure.
Look, I can watch my watch window. I can show that. That's a different skill than teaching debugging.
Correct. And that's like the 90% of the work we do is debugging, not using the debugging tools. Okay, I have a tool, I know how to use them, but where do I find this bug?
That's really great.
The one thing I don't record is me banging my head against the desk. I try to edit that out.
Both of us, it looks like, have banged a few times.
I pull my hair out, so
So I can't help but notice, I'm looking at your YouTube channel here, 94,000 subscribers.
Yes.
Is not a small accomplishment. That's impressive.
It's over time, but start by accident.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, how do you market it a lot, or do you just word of mouth and
There's no marketing.
There's no marketing.
This is my marketing.
This is your marketing. Well, I'm glad to have you here. Yeah.
No, it's so I started off. I was teaching at a local community college. I was teaching C#, And the format was
You were teaching, so you've got a background in actually teaching.
Yes, I do.
Like paid for teaching.
Correct.
Okay.
So I was teaching the class. The class was, I believe, Wednesday nights from 6 o'clock to 9 o'clock.
It's like Philly.net. That's our meetings, right? Okay.
The problem is that if you're trying to learn C# from the ground up, and it's once a week for 3 hours, you get buried for 3 hours, and then you forget for 6 days.
Right.
And then you get buried for 3 hours, and all of a sudden, 3 classes in, you're like, I'm behind. And so, of course, my first recommendation is practice. If you practice, that reinforces what you learn. If you just watch, that's not as beneficial to you. But I knew I needed to give something to my students to help them out. And so I created some horrendously awful, please don't watch them, I wish I could just delete them, but people still watch them, videos. So the sound quality is like this really buzzing microphone, It's a little USB microphone I have, but
sure.
It worked.
You're doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I created some videos that were just for my class. They're actually titled CIS 163-101. So my SEO was through the roof. I mean, if you're looking for that, you got me. Otherwise, you didn't get me. But I was actually sitting at camp, and I opened my laptop. I would look at my YouTube channel, and my views were like 1, 2, 1, 1, and then all of a sudden it started to curve up, and I had 1,000, 2,000. Wow. I'm like, okay, something's different. And people that weren't in my class were watching my videos, and so that's when I realized or started to say,
something's going on here.
Yeah, well, let's help people out.
Yeah.
My passion really is for helping, especially new developers, but any developer who struggles to get from A to B, to not feel like you're alone, to not feel like you're overwhelmed. Let's get you from here to there, because it's difficult at times.
Yeah.
So you said there was that, you watched the video, number of views and things, and there was that inflection point, if you will, where things kind of changed. Was it a topic? Was it a certain video you did? Was it a style that you changed up? What was that thing that kind of drove your population up?
So there's one video that really took off, and in fact, it's still my most popular video.
Okay.
And it was a C# application from start to finish.
Oh, cool.
And it was in 2 hours. So
it's C# start to finish in 15 minutes. Right. So 2 hours. Okay.
2 hours. It was an application, not teaching C#, just teaching how to use your C# knowledge to build an application. And it was a database type application, but with no database.
Okay.
So it was just really cut down, slimmed down. Let's just get through the flow of how this would work.
Okay.
Right.
And people really resonate with that because they've seen these tutorials, but it's a piece here, it's a piece there, it's a piece over here.
Right.
How do I take these Lego bricks and put them together and to build something awesome?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that's the connection part that people are missing.
That ability to sort of show the whole thing is really powerful. I used to do a talk here in Philly on the Friday of code camps called end-to-end, I forget, it had some long name, but it was end-to-end development. It was a full day. And so, we talk about so many sessions. There's about, this part of DevOps and this part of testing and this part of building an application and these best practices. And I sort of showed like the whole day. It was sort of like if you took 3 months of a developer and bundled it down, but to show how the pieces connect and why one's important to the other. I got such great feedback on the value of that, and so I can see how that would be the case in your 2-hour thing of building an application, but really showing the importance of certain aspects of it, and more than just the code. An application, not just the code. So that's really cool. What did you have a question? Sorry.
No, that's okay.
So do you do are these live? Or do you record them, edit them, pause them?
It's screen share, and it's screen share, but it's not live. It's recorded, and then I post it. So I post twice a week usually.
Twice a week?
Twice a week. That's
a lot.
So, Monday is a tutorial video. In fact, we're actually going through a series right now every other Monday.
Okay.
Which I call the TimCo Retail Manager series. What we're doing is we're building an application.
So you are building upon week after week?
Correct.
Oh, that's great.
And we're building in .NET Framework. And people are asking, well, why would you build in .NET Framework? Right. And the reason why is because one of the things I found is, yes, .NET Core is awesome, and .NET Core is a way to go. And if you want to move forward in a new application, .NET Core is the thing to do.
Right.
However, 99% of businesses have .NET framework applications.
Sure.
And so there's going to be a time where that transition needs to happen in a business. And so we're building up a .NET framework application that simulates a real world application to then convert it over to .NET Core.
Right.
So you can see that conversion process, building a real application, but then converting that over into .NET Core. And so that happens in early November. We'll do a .NET Core conversion.
That's a lot going on. You know, it's really important, I think, for people in the community that are delivering content to not just focus on the new shiny stuff, which is really exciting for people as a presenter, right? It's exciting, it's something new for you. But time and time again, when I talk to people in the enterprise, they're not using Blazor, you know, they're not ready to go to .NET Core. Their application might be on a server that doesn't even support the latest version of .NET Framework, you know, things like that. And they're just not ready to change that.
Right.
And that doesn't make it bad, right? We want to be careful to, you know, understand that, right? Because a lot of times I have people say, oh, well, I'm still working on this, or I'm still working on that. That's okay. Are you building good software?
Right.
You know, and there's so much, but there's so much cool new stuff. We were said right before you came on, I think .NET Core 3, you know, it's here.
Yes.
Right? I mean,
absolutely.
You're seeing people using it now more and more?
I am. I have
talking about it at least, right?
Talking about it for sure, but I have customers that are actually moving towards it or using it currently, especially for newer applications. And that's what we talk through. If I have a customer come on board, we talk through the idea of do you have existing software, and if you do, let's talk about how we migrate that over to .NET Core. But then new stuff is all .NET Core because it's faster, it's cross-platform, it's all these things that are just really beneficial.
Have you tried? Now I have a bad memory. Try Convert or something like that. There's this tool. Rich, you remember we talked about it on the show once? There's a tool that you can use to convert a .NET Framework application to a .NET Core application, and they talked about it in the keynote. I think the keynote on .NET Conf.
Okay.
It doesn't sound. I mean, you didn't nod and go like, yeah. So
no, I haven't used. I used it, I think, in a demo once.
Okay. I don't know if it's demoware or if it's.
So in a lot of ways, Microsoft puts out some amazing things. I'm really appreciative for all our tooling to do. In the area of upgrading to .NET Core, I typically go against their advice.
Okay.
Because part of my personality and part of it's because I found better experiences with it. So they have a tool that will evaluate your .NET Framework application and say, okay, these are the things that might be a problem.
Okay.
The problem is it's information overload. So I'm not sure what to do with this, and I have to spend more time researching what does this mean, and does it even affect me? You know, so it may say, okay, this part over here is not compatible, but I'm not using that part over there. But I have to figure that out.
Right.
And so what I do is I kind of ignore all that and just start at the upgrade.
Just go for it.
Just go for it. The upgrade process, especially for desktop applications, is really easy. Desktop and console and class libraries, very easy to upgrade. You open up your CS proj file, you delete everything, you add about 6 lines of code back in, and that's it for the upgrade process, except for your NuGet packages, references, and any files you bring over as content. That's really all there is.
Wow.
Until you break something. And of course, if something's not backward compatible or compatible going forward, that'll be a problem. But you'll find out.
Right.
Because an error message will say, this don't work. And you go, okay. Now I
got to fix that.
Now I know, yes, that does affect me. And here's how I fix that. Or hopefully here's how I fix that.
Gotcha.
So
that's like a pretty good way. You're just basically saying, rip off the Band-Aid. Just go for it.
Just try.
Yeah.
We have Git for a reason. Create a branch, try it out. If it doesn't work, blow it away and say, let's start over the right way.
Right. It's funny that you said Git, because in my mind, I'm thinking about how some of our teams at work, we've started about half of our teams are using Git. Some of them are still using, TFVC, which is fine, but I've said it's time to switch. And sometimes I hear people like, well, I want to make sure I know it a little better. I want to, there's this hesitance, and I've been using that, just rip off the Band-Aid.
Sure.
Sometimes just go for it, right? it's not going to be that much of a disaster.
Nope.
I always say this: most things, Google it, and what did I do to my Google.
I didn't learn version control until embarrassingly late in my career.
Okay.
That's one of my areas
Did
of.
you do zip file? Come on,
We've all been there. It's okay.
Let's not.
Yeah. And so I didn't even know about version control. When I did, it was like, that's a scary,
It
confusing.
seems like a scary thing, right? Not that it is.
Especially with Git. Git doesn't use English. Rebase, what does that mean? I don't understand that. And branch and
point.
pull and push, and why am I pulling and pushing and merging and fetching? And I don't understand.
Right.
And so actually, I documented it and tried it and figured it out. I used text files and just figured out all the commands. And was like, okay, I understand what the documentation's saying, but maybe I'm slow. I'm gonna put this into my language that I understand until I figured it out. Then I created a 2-hour YouTube video that is intro to Git.
So that was what I was going to say next. So you have a video.
There you go.
So I'm looking at your channel here a little bit, and I see a pretty good variety of topics on here. And if I scroll through, you've got a whole bunch of stuff. I don't know the best. These are probably the created playlists. Here's upload. I see different titles. I see WPF. I see C#. Here's your retail manager course that you were talking about. Design patterns and principles. This is what I was thinking about this earlier about getting started, and think about when I got started, and there was no CI/CD. I mean, maybe there was, but no one was really doing it. There was zip file source control. There wasn't entity framework. I mean, there wasn't so many of these things,
Sure.
right? And even the language features or the .NET framework features, there wasn't Link. I mean, we're better off with Link, but there wasn't Link. There wasn't generics, and what it must be like, I think, for the poor person who's starting today, and because when they come to interview with me, now I'm going to look at them and understand they're a new person, but my list of things I want to tick off for an interview process, is DevOps. It's web frameworks, whether it be Angular, React, stuff like that. It's knowing SQL, right? It used to be you had a DBA that did your SQL stuff for you.
Yeah.
Now we expect the developer to do that.
Sure.
And then I started to ask them about unit testing, and I asked them about design principles, talking about solid, all these things, right? You probably have a course on that. I wouldn't be surprised.
It's in there somewhere.
There it is, right?
Yep.
It's in there somewhere, right?
Yep.
So it's unbelievable how much, and I think some of it comes from, there's been a shift in the I think in the .NET space. I think other development platforms maybe have had it earlier than maybe some of the .NET stuff, but the shift towards that craftsmanship side of software, not just putting 1,000 lines into some method, but doing it right. And so doing it right includes DevOps, includes the test, like more of that stuff.
Right.
It's just mind-boggling to think about the amount of stuff people need to learn. But I think I found the solution, which is youtube.com/IAmTimCorey, because it kind of looks like you've got a lot of stuff out there.
I do. Now, the one thing that I also found with YouTube is if you don't know what you don't know, it's hard to find what you don't know.
Yeah.
So if you don't know that Link exists,
Sure.
how do you find it?
Right.
I have people on my channel, so I try and answer every comment, which is
That's good.
that's
yeah.
tough, but we're still there. And I get a lot of questions about, well, what about this? What about, I don't know how to do this. I'm like, well, I've got a video for that. But it's hard to search for that. There's a search box on my channel. You can search through the 180 videos.
But if you don't know Link is called Link, as the
Correct.
example, you're not going to,
I use Dapper a lot instead of Entity Framework.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And people don't even know it exists. And so you don't know to look for Dapper, so you don't know that it exists, so you're missing out on that amazing tool.
Right.
And
So what do you tag your video says? I bet in the tags you have something like comparison, entity framework, things like that to sort of cue you in.
The title is Connect C# to SQL the Easy Way.
Yeah, sure, that's a good idea. Yep.
Because connecting SQL and C#, and then hopefully you get that. But I did find there's that missing piece of, hey, I don't know how to create my own path. That path. Yeah. And so I actually created a course for that. The Foundation in C# course, which starts from, I don't know even what Visual Studio is. Let's install that. What is C#? How is it structured? All those questions that you feel like you're stupid for asking because people just know this. Yeah. I didn't get people that said that. Well, people should just know that. And I'm like, we're not born with C# knowledge.
They should just know. Yeah.
And so it starts from there, and it works you all the way through all these different questions. And even laying the course out was a little overwhelming because there's so many things to learn next, and to learn next, and to learn next.
It's daunting. It is. It's daunting as a student and as a teacher.
It is. So that course ended up with 10 different modules, 10 different courses actually that I separated out.
10 different. So how many individual videos then make that up?
Hundreds,
right? Because you basically took it. And what's nice about that though is I can look at that and I can go in there and say, okay, I've been doing software development for 6 months. I got the Visual Studio part. I can skip that video.
Right.
I don't need that. I've got the basics of C#. I can move past that, and I can look through the course and find out where I want to jump in.
Right. Yep.
That's pretty powerful.
So I also made the first course free. It's not everything's free in life, but
so some of your videos you charge
are paid.
For.
Yes.
Okay.
So
glad we mentioned that because that's important.
Yes, it is important. Yeah. But the first video is free because that lays out that path. So that if you don't want to, can't afford, whatever, to pay for something, you can take that layout that I created in my first course where I said, here's how we're going to learn things in what order, and then go to YouTube and find those pieces. So you do a little more legwork.
I see.
But it's free.
So the videos are out there for everybody?
No, the courses are not out there, but similar videos are out there on my channel that cover it.
Yeah, okay, right. So that's an interesting combination of things.
Yeah.
Sort of you get your free version of some sorts, and you've got your premium.
Correct.
Right?
Now, I try to do everything on free that I can. So it's the paid for me is more about, do you want the convenience of having it all put together for you, or do you want to do the legwork of, okay, this is what I have to do next.
Right.
And that's really the difference between paid and free for me.
Yeah, it's interesting how this sort of dynamic between free and paid, and some people are in the mindset like, hey, and I've always kind of felt this way, like something's worth paying for. If it's good, it is worth paying for. Shouldn't expect you to always put all your time in there for the community. On the other hand, there's a lot of free stuff out there. It's hard to compete, and it's sort of complicated. I see a lot of organizations are sort of embracing things like Pluralsight and things like that. You've sort of gone on your own. Is it a pricing model we could talk about? Is that
sure?
Yeah.
IAmTimCorey.com.
Yeah.
So the prices range from about $29 to $120 some dollars for my courses.
Okay.
So
if I'm, something's important to me, and I say, hey, you know what? I'm interviewing for a job. I want to get skilled up. So $120.
Right.
That sounds like a value to me.
So my complete Foundation C# course, the bundle is $200 and some dollars.
Okay.
For 10 courses, but that is, I taught a semester of C#.
Yeah.
Well, I did 3 semesters worth of work in that course.
Okay.
So you could have gone, and paid $500 for 1 semester, or you could have paid $200 for 3 semesters. Now, I'm not giving you college credit, so there is the difference there. But this is practical.
Excellent. I think we got to cut it back.
We're about ready to drop back. Yeah.
About ready to drop back, so I don't want to cut you off too hard. Hope we can have you come back on the Dev Talk Show, which we do, and we can have you stream in from home or something like that, or you can even come by if you're not that far from here.
Sounds good.
And thanks for coming in and talking with us. This was a really fun conversation. It's great talking to you.
Nice to meet you.